The petunias were particularly stubborn this morning. I knelt in the front garden of our modest suburban home, coaxing them into their new bed while trying to ignore my mother-in-law's voice carrying clearly from the white picket fence where she held court with Mrs. Patterson from next door. Maya Selen and Nehara Beverly Whitfield announced with the kind of volume reserved for making sure everyone within 3 houses could hear. She's nobody special. No pedigree, no connections. Just some girl who works for the government, probably a secretary or something. I continued transplanting seedlings, my hands steady despite the familiar sting. 3 years of marriage to Daniel, and Beverly still introduced me as Daniel's wife rather than by my name, Evelyn Knight. Such a shame, Mrs. Patterson tutted sympathetically. Daniel had such potential. Valedictorian at Yale, you said. Summa cum laude, Beverly corrected. He could have married the Ashford girl. Her father owns half of Connecticut. Instead, he chose, well, she gestured vaguely in my direction. She doesn't even dress properly. Look at her, gardening in yoga pants like some housewife. I glanced down at my weekend attire, comfortable clothes perfect for yard work. The irony wasn't lost on me that Beverly criticized both my career and my domestic activities with equal vigor. Does she work? Mrs. Patterson asked, as if I weren't 15 feet away. Something with international trade, she claims, though she's always vague about it, probably embarrassed. I've told Daniel 1,000 times, a man of his caliber needs a wife who can advance his career, not hold it back. I placed another petunia, remembering Daniel's face when his mother had said something similar at our wedding. He'd been ready to confront her. But I'd squeezed his hand, whispered that it didn't matter. And it didn't. Not really. His love was worth more than his mother's approval. The sound of an approaching vehicle made me look up. A black Lincoln Town car with diplomatic plates glided to a stop in front of our house. Not unusual in D.C.'s suburbs, but certainly unexpected on our quiet street on a Saturday morning. Beverly's monologue halted mid-sentence. A uniformed driver emerged and opened the rear door. Ambassador Harrison Clark stepped out, his silver hair gleaming in the morning sun. I suppressed a groan. So much for a peaceful weekend. Ms. Knight, he called, his distinguished voice carrying across the lawn. I apologize for the intrusion on your Saturday. I stood brushing dirt from my knees. Ambassador Clark, this is unexpected. He'd approached with the measured gait of a career diplomat, his expression grave. I'm afraid we have a situation. The president requests your immediate counsel on the Korean trade agreement. There's been a development. In my peripheral vision, I saw Beverly's jaw literally drop. Mrs. Patterson's eyes went wide. How urgent? I asked. The South Korean delegation is threatening to walk. You're the only one who can salvage this. He paused, noticing my gardening attire. I can wait while you change. Give me 10 minutes, I said, already moving toward the house. Behind me, I heard Beverly stammer, Ambassador, the president? I paused at the door, turning back. Oh, Beverly, Ambassador Clark. Ambassador, my mother-in-law, Beverly Whitfield. Harrison, ever the diplomat, inclined his head graciously. Mrs. Whitfield, your daughter-in-law is a treasure to this nation. We're fortunate she chooses to serve. I slipped inside before Beverly could form a response, allowing myself a small smile. Daniel was in the kitchen, coffee mug frozen halfway to his lips. Was that Harrison's voice? Crisis with the Koreans, I explained, already heading for the stairs. I need to go in. He followed me to our bedroom. On a Saturday, must be serious. Minister Park is being difficult about the agricultural provisions. I pulled out my emergency go bag, always packed with appropriate attire. He thinks we're trying to undercut their rice farmers. Are we? No, but someone mistranslated a crucial clause. I've been warning them about using that translation service. I slipped into a crisp navy suit, fingers flying through the buttons. Your mother's outside, by the way. She's been telling Mrs. Patterson how I'm holding you back. Daniel's face darkened. Again? Ev, you should let me. It's fine. I interrupted, kissing him quickly. I need to go save a trade deal worth $40 billion. We can discuss your mother's opinions about my inadequacy later. You're not inadequate, he said firmly. You're extraordinary. And I'm going to tell her. After I get back, I promised. The Koreans won't wait. Downstairs, I grabbed my secure laptop and briefcase. Through the window, I could see Beverly and Mrs. Patterson hadn't moved, still staring at the ambassador's car like it might disappear. Harrison was on his phone when I emerged. He ended the call quickly. The president's already in the Situation Room. The Commerce Secretary and Trade Representative are en route. And Minister Park, at his embassy packing, he opened the car door for me. We have perhaps 2 hours before this becomes irreversible. As I slid into the limousine, I caught sight of Daniel emerging from the house. He waved and I blew him a kiss, knowing Beverly was watching everything. Your mother-in-law seemed surprised, Harrison observed as we pulled away. I may have forgotten to mention the exact nature of my work, I admitted. He chuckled. Deputy Director of International Trade Negotiations, personal advisor to 3 presidents, fluent in 7 languages, and the only person who can make Minister Park laugh. Yes, I can see how that might slip one's mind in casual conversation. She never asked, I said simply. She assumed, and I let her. May I ask why? I considered the question. Would it have mattered? She decided I wasn't good enough for her son the moment she learned my parents were teachers, not titans of industry. If she'd known about my job, she'd have found other reasons to disapprove. And yet you marry him anyway. Harrison, I've negotiated with dictators, prime ministers, and CEOs who could buy small countries. Beverly Whitfield doesn't even make my top 100 most difficult personalities. He laughed outright at that. Fair point, though after today she might revise her opinion. Or she'll convince herself it was all a misunderstanding. I opened my laptop, already shifting focus to the crisis at hand. Send me the latest draft. Let's see what mess the translation team made this time. The rest of the ride was spent in preparation. By the time we reached the White House, I'd identified 3 critical errors in translation and formulated a strategy to address Minister Park's concerns. The Situation Room was already occupied. President Morrison looked up as I entered, relief evident on her face. Evelyn, thank God. Tell me you can fix this. Madam President. I set my briefcase down, nodding to the assembled team. The issue is lines 347 through 352 in Section 9. The Korean translation implies we're setting quotas on their agricultural exports, not quality standards. Minister Park thinks we're trying to protect our rice farmers at their expense. Are we? Commerce Secretary Williams asked. No, but the mistranslation makes it look that way. I need to speak with Minister Park directly. Can we get him on secure video? He's refusing all calls, the trade representative said glumly. State's been trying all morning. I pulled out my personal phone. He'll take mine. The room watched as I dialed a number from memory. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered in rapid Korean. Minister Park, I said in Korean, it's Evelyn Knight. I hear you're leaving us. A pause. Then, Ms. Knight. I wondered when they would send you. I'm sorry about the translation error, Minister. It's inexcusable. You've seen it. I'm looking at it now. Whoever did this should be fired. It completely misrepresents our position. Another pause. In English, he said, you would admit error. When we're wrong? Always. May I explain what we actually meant? 20 minutes later, Minister Park agreed to return to negotiations. The relief in the room was palpable. I spent the next 3 hours working with the translation team to correct not just the agricultural sections, but reviewing the entire 400-page document for similar errors. Evelyn, President Morrison said as we wrapped up, once again, you've saved us from catastrophe. I don't suppose I could convince you to take the trade representative position when Ambassador Liu retires. Thank you, Madam President, but I prefer my current role. Less politics, more problem-solving. She smiled. And it lets you maintain your cover as a suburban nobody, according to Harrison. I glanced at the ambassador, who looked appropriately sheepish. He may have mentioned something about your mother-in-law during the security briefing. Beverly's harmless, I said, just protective of her son. Well, after today, she might see things differently. The president stood, signaling the meeting's end. Thank you again, Evelyn. Get some rest. We'll need you fresh for the formal signing on Monday. Harrison drove me home personally, you know, he said as we turned onto my street. In all my years in service, I've rarely met someone who hides their light under such a bushel. I'm not hiding, I protested. I just don't advertise. There's a difference. I thought about it. When I met Daniel, I was just another government worker grabbing coffee at the same shop. He fell in love with me, not my resume. That's precious to me. Beverly can think what she wants, but Daniel knows who I am. And that's enough. More than enough. We pulled up to find a small crowd in my front yard. Beverly was still there, now joined by what looked like half the neighborhood. Daniel stood on the porch, arms crossed, clearly standing guard. The vultures circle, Harrison murmured. Shall I come in? Lend some gravitas. No mead, I said, gathering my things. But thank you for the ride. Evelyn, he caught my arm gently. You do know you're one of the most valuable assets this country has. I'm a public servant, Harrison. Nothing more, nothing less. He shook his head but smiled. If you say so. See you Monday. I emerged from the limousine to find every eye fixed on me. Daniel met me halfway up the walk, pulling me into a hug. Mission accomplished, he murmured. Crisis averted. How bad has it been here? Mom's been fielding questions for 2 hours. Mrs. Patterson Googled you. Oh dear. Yeah. Turns out you have a Wikipedia page. Who knew? I groaned. That thing, it's mostly wrong. It says you negotiated the Pacific Trade Agreement. I was part of a team, and that you received the Medal of Freedom. That was excessive. I jest. And that you speak 7 languages and have a PhD from Georgetown. Now that part's accurate. He grinned. Come on, Dr. Knight. Let's face the mob. Beverly intercepted us at the porch. For the first time in 3 years, she seemed at a loss for words. Evelyn. The ambassador said, the president. There was a situation with the Korean trade deal, I said mildly, all sorted now. But he said, counsel to the president, the actual president. Sometimes yes, when needed. And you never mentioned this because... I met her gaze steadily. You never asked, Beverly. You told me I was nobody special. I didn't see the point in correcting you. She flushed. I may have misjudged. Mrs. Patterson pushed forward. Is it true you speak Korean? And Mandarin? And Arabic? Among others, yes. And you've met world leaders. It's part of the job. The questions came fast then. Neighbors suddenly fascinated by the woman they dismissed as Daniel's quiet wife. I answered what I could, deflected what I couldn't, and finally escaped inside with Daniel's help. Well, he said, closing the door behind us. That was interesting. Your mother looked shell-shocked. She'll recover, though I think her bridge club will be hearing a very different story about her daughter-in-law from now on. I kicked off my heels, suddenly exhausted. I need to finish planting those petunias. After you saved a $40 billion trade deal, I think the petunias can wait. The petunias don't care about trade deals, I pointed out. They just need good soil and water. He pulled me close. This is why I love you. You negotiate with presidents and prime ministers, then come home and worry about flowers. Everyone needs balance, I murmured against his chest. A knock at the door interrupted us. Daniel sighed. If that's another neighbor wanting to know about your secret life. But it was Beverly, standing alone on the porch. May I come in? Daniel looked at me. I nodded. In our living room, Beverly perched on the edge of the sofa like she'd never been there before. Which, come to think of it, was almost true. She usually insisted we visit her. I owe you an apology, she began stiffly. I made assumptions. Yes, I agreed. You did. You could have corrected me. At any time. Would you have believed me, or would you have assumed I was embellishing? She had the grace to look ashamed. Probably the latter. Beverly, I said, sitting across from her, I don't need you to be impressed by my job. I need you to respect me as Daniel's partner, as part of your family. I thought Daniel was settling, that he could do better. Better than someone who loves him completely, who supports his dreams, who makes him laugh every day. I meant financially, socially. I know what you meant. I kept my voice gentle. But Daniel doesn't measure success the way you do. He never has. No, she admitted. He measures it in happiness. And he's happy with you. Disgustingly happy, Daniel confirmed from the doorway, despite your best efforts to convince me otherwise. Beverly winced. I've been awful, haven't I? Yes, Daniel and I said in unison. She surprised me by laughing. I suppose I deserve that. She stood, smoothing her skirt. Evelyn, would you consider starting over? I'd like to know my daughter-in-law, the real one, not the one I invented in my head. I considered her outstretched hand. 3 years of slights, dismissals, and condescension. But also Daniel's mother, the woman who raised the man I loved. I took her hand. I'd like that. She squeezed gently. Perhaps you could tell me about your work, the real version. Over tea sometime, I suggested, when there isn't a crowd of neighbors waiting for gossip. Deal. She moved toward the door, then paused. Evelyn, the ambassador said you were a treasure to the nation. Harrison's prone to exaggeration. I don't think he was exaggerating. She met my eyes. I think I've been too small-minded to see what was right in front of me. After she left, Daniel pulled me back into his arms. That went better than expected. She's trying, I said. That's something. So about those petunias. I laughed. Yes, they still need planting. Trade deals are temporary. Gardens are forever. Spoken like a true diplomat, he teased. We spent the rest of the afternoon in the garden together, planting flowers while neighbors found excuses to walk by and stare. By evening, the petunias were in their beds, the Korean trade crisis was resolved, and Beverly had texted me about having tea next week. You know, Daniel said as we admired our handiwork, you could have shut down Mom's criticism years ago. One mention of your job, your degrees, your connections. And then what? She'd have respected me for the wrong reasons, or found new things to criticize. Besides, I leaned into him. I like our quiet life. I like being just Evelyn in our neighborhood, not Deputy Director Knight. Even if it means putting up with years of nobody special comments. Even then, because you know I'm special, that's all that matters. He kissed the top of my head. For what it's worth, I think Mom gets it now. The real you, not just the impressive resume. Maybe, or maybe she'll just brag about my Wikipedia page to her bridge club. Probably both, he admitted. As the sun set over our suburban street, I thought about identity and perception, about the faces we show the world and the ones we keep private. Tomorrow the neighbors would still gossip. Beverly would still struggle with her assumptions. And I would still be both things, the woman who advised presidents and the woman who planted petunias. But tonight, I was just Evelyn, working in her garden with the man she loved in the life they built together. And despite what Beverly had believed all these years, that made me somebody very special indeed.